Imagine this. A racist white cop pulls over a black woman without cause, drags her out of the car, and slams her onto the hood. He degrades her, beats her, and plants drugs on her, unaware that she is his new captain. But what she did next will shock even the most jaded. Let's start from the beginning. Officers Ethan Caldwell and Jordan Reeves were patrolling a busy area. It was getting late, and the streets were filling with people. For Ethan, a sergeant with 15 years on the force, it was just another routine day, accompanied by his usual irritation, especially after the latest changes in the department. I still can't believe they made one of those filthy ones our boss. Ethan grumbled, his voice soaked with disdain. This department is going downhill, and it's no surprise if they keep making decisions like that. Jordan, his rookie partner, who had only been on the force a few months, glanced nervously at Ethan. He didn't like that tone, but he knew that arguing with the sergeant wasn't a great idea, especially with him in such a mood. Jordan was still finding his footing and didn't feel confident challenging his senior. Maybe she earned it, Jordan said cautiously, though his voice was laced with doubt. I heard she has a good reputation, and I think she graduated top of her class at the academy. Ethan turned sharply away from the road and looked at Jordan like he was a naive child. Good reputation? Ethan sneered. A reputation doesn't mean anything if you've never been out on the front lines. These office rats have no clue what it's like out here. They live in their perfect world, where everything can be fixed with reports and meetings. People like her don't understand real police work. They don't care what's actually going on. They sit in their offices, typing away and collecting bonuses. But the streets? That's a whole different story. Out here you can live by the rules of reports. The car cruised through a residential area when Ethan suddenly noticed a black SUV parked on the curb. It was a luxury vehicle, clearly standing out from the other cars in the neighborhood. Behind the wheel sat a black woman, dressed in a business suit. She wasn't breaking any traffic laws, but something about her raised Ethan's suspicions. Look at that, Ethan said, frowning and nodding toward the car. That's a fancy ride for this neighborhood. Looks like something stolen. Jordan raised his eyebrows slightly. But she's not breaking any laws, he muttered quietly. There's no reason to stop her. Reason? Ethan snorted, grinning. We're cops. We always have a reason if we look hard enough. Besides, how could someone like her afford that car? Got family in the government or something. Jordan felt a knot tighten in his stomach at the comment. He couldn't figure out why Ethan was so agitated. It was just another routine patrol, but his partner seemed to be looking for a fight. There was something more in his voice than just boredom. Something that made him bristle every time he faced a situation that didn't align with his worldview. Without waiting for Jordan's agreement, Ethan flipped on the patrol car's lights. The black SUV smoothly pulled over to the side of the road. The woman inside appeared calm, but Jordan could sense tension in the air. Ethan stepped out of the car with a smirk on his face, and Jordan reluctantly followed, feeling a growing unease. Ethan approached the driver's window, which the woman had rolled down and barked, "License and registration." The woman calmly handed him the documents. What's the problem, officer? Did I do something wrong? Just a routine check. Ethan shot her a quick, distrustful glance. What are you doing in this neighborhood? I'm on my way to a business meeting, she answered politely, maintaining her composure. Her face showed no fear, just mild annoyance. Ethan glanced at her papers briefly, but his suspicion only grew. Miss Hayes, he said, barely hiding the disdain in his voice. Nice car for a business meeting. Are you sure it's yours? Jordan stood silently nearby, his anxiety growing with each passing moment. He knew the woman had done nothing wrong. The whole situation felt overly aggressive. The woman remained calm and confident, but Ethan was clearly itching for a confrontation. Sergeant, Jordan whispered, glancing at Ethan, we can't hold her without real cause. She's given us her documents. Everything checks out. Ethan ignored Jordan's words. His irritation was at a breaking point, and he decided to act on his own terms. Suddenly, he yanked open the car door and roughly grabbed the woman by the arm, pulling her out of the vehicle. She hadn't even had time to unbuckle her seatbelt, and her body tumbled awkwardly onto the asphalt. Her purse fell onto the side of the car. "What are you doing?" she shouted, trying to get to her feet. Her voice trembled, but she refused to give in. Ethan shoved her against the car, pressing her onto the hood. She hit her shoulder against the metal surface and screamed in pain. "Think you can drive around here in a car like that?" Ethan hissed, leaning into her face. "I'm sure something's shady here. Care to explain how you got this car?" Jordan stood frozen, unable to believe what he was witnessing. This had gone far beyond any acceptable line. He knew it was wrong, but how could he stop Ethan? Ethan was his partner, his superior, and any conflict with him could cost Jordan his career. "Ethan, stop," Jordan said weakly, hoping his words might somehow diffuse the situation. "This is too much. She hasn't done anything." But Ethan didn't even glance back. He was already in full control. "Shut up, Jordan," Ethan snarled. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. It's people like her that are ruining this city. If we don't take action, this place will be a dump." The woman, hearing his words, gritted her teeth and suddenly stood tall. "Officer Harrison," she said firmly, her voice shaking with fury, "you have no idea who you're dealing with." Ethan smirked, not taking her seriously. "Really?" he asked sarcastically, his voice dripping with venom. "And who are you? Some lawyer or rich girl's daughter?" The woman calmly reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out an ID, handing it to Jordan. His face turned pale as he read it. He slowly passed it to Ethan. "This is Captain Simone Hayes, our new boss," Jordan said quietly, barely believing his own words. Ethan froze, his confidence vanishing, as if the ground had been ripped out from under him. He couldn't believe it. The woman he had just humiliated and attacked was his commanding officer. This is a joke, right?" Ethan whispered, his voice trembling, as if the world was collapsing around him. Captain Simone Hayes stood before him, her expression cold and controlled, a sharp contrast to the rage she had felt just moments before. Her voice was calm, but her tone was ice cold. "No joke, Sergeant Harrison," she said with deadly precision, "and you've just committed the biggest mistake of your career." Jordan didn't know where to look. He stood by, feeling his internal world crumbling, as he realized what he had been a part of. His silence could cost him not only his job, but also his integrity. "Captain, I didn't know," Ethan mumbled, his voice growing weaker, searching for a way to justify his actions. But Captain Hayes wasn't going to give him that chance. "And if you had known, what would have been different?" Her voice turned even colder. "The law is the law, and you are obligated to follow it, no matter who's in front of you, whether it's a captain or an ordinary citizen. What you did is an abuse of power, a gross violation of police ethics, not to mention blatant discrimination." Her words sliced through the air like a blade. Jordan stood, afraid to move, while Ethan stood speechless, trying to find a way out of this disaster. The crowd around them had started to grow, with people pulling out their phones, recording the entire incident. Sirens blared in the background as backup arrived. The full weight of what had just transpired started to sink in for Ethan. His career, his reputation. It was all hanging by a thread. And now it had all become public. An accident? Hayes repeated coldly. "Accidents happen when you mix up documents or accidentally violate protocol. But what you did, Sergeant Harrison, was not an accident. It was deliberate, systematic abuse of your power. You planted drugs, humiliated me as a citizen, and grossly violated my rights." Backup officers arrived on the scene, and Ethan was handcuffed and searched. He didn't resist, but his face was ghostly pale, like a man realizing his entire world had just collapsed. "Captain, Ethan whispered as they led him toward the patrol car. "I wasn't doing this for myself. I was trying to protect all of us. It's just a job, just the streets." But Hayes just shook her head. It's not the job, Ethan. It's betrayal. And it's people like you that are destroying our society from within. Jordan hesitantly approached the captain, his voice trembling with emotion. Captain, I wanted to intervene, but his voice trailed off. He didn't know what to say. Simone Hayes looked at him, her face stern, but something in her eyes gave Jordan hope. You kept silent, but now you have a chance to fix this, she said. Only the truth can save you, Officer Reeves. You must tell everything as it happened. Don't try to hide the truth. Jordan nodded, and a sense of resolve formed inside him. He knew he had made a mistake, but now he had a chance to do the right thing. Captain Hayes turned and walked back to her car. This was a day that would change everything for Ethan, for Jordan, and for the entire police department. The wail of sirens filled the background, and the crowd continued to grow. People were uploading videos to social media, and the incident had already begun to spread. Today marked a turning point in the fight against corruption and abuse of power, and this was just the beginning.